This is All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. Many of you know the voice of WNYC's Tiffany Hanssen. But did you know that lurking beneath the dulcet tones of the public radio journalist was a novelist? Hanssen's debut book, My Name Was Jerry Sass, comes out today. In the book, we learn that Jerry Sass was involved in crime, not the disorganized kind, if you catch my drift. Early on in the story, Jerry gets axed by some bad dudes, and it was witnessed by his friend Dan. Father Dan. When Jerry's daughter is told of his demise, she becomes hell-bent on revenge. As for Jerry, well, he's in purgatory and has to deal with his life choices. Publishers Weekly called the book, quote, a knockout. My Name Was Jerry Sass is out now. Tiffany will be at the Mysterious Bookstore on May 20th at 6 p.m. And Tiffany Hanssen joins me in studio. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
When did you know you wanted to be a novelist?
I don't think I ever thought of myself as a novelist, or that I maybe even still think of myself as a novelist. I've always been writing. I think writers always going to write. And, you know, a good product of the liberal arts education that I am, always thinking creatively, always writing things down, writing stories that, you know, no one should ever see. And so I don't think it was ever a case of, I'm going to do this thing. It was more just the story came together in such a way that I thought, this is pretty good. I might as well. Maybe I'll see if somebody else likes it. Yeah.
How did Jerry Sass come to you?
Yeah, so Jerry Sass is a very loosely fictionalized version of my father. My father is someone who I did not grow up with. I did not know. And during the pandemic, we all had time on our hands, and I thought it would be a good idea to just see what I could find out about the guy. Couldn't find out very much about him. And so my husband suggested that I do the Ancestry.com DNA test thing. Found a couple of half-siblings that I didn't know I had.
Okay.
My running joke is I grew up an only child. I'm now the youngest of 5. So Jerry was an interesting character. So I found out a lot about him from my half-siblings. Mm-hmm. And obviously, if I'm saying that this is sort of a loose fictionalization of him, he wasn't a great dude. I'm not going to say he was a hitman for sure. I'm not going to say he wasn't. But we can all agree that he was not a good dude. Mm-hmm. And so it really just came from finding out these little tidbits about him and, not having grown up with him. I was always making up stories about him anyway. Mm-hmm. And so this just sort of seemed like, the natural progression, I guess.
How did his voice come to you?
Well, Allison, I am very fluent at speaking man. I've grown up in a man's world. I'm very fluent in it. And I think for me, it was a voice that was just fun. It was fun more than anything. It wasn't that I thought too much about what his personality would sound like. Once I kind of knew where he was coming from, his voice really followed pretty easily.
Jerry talks to us from purgatory. We learn about his life. And you write, Jerry's highlight reel was not at all a comfort to him. Mm-hmm. What did you want the reader to sort of understand about Jerry?
I think that there's a notion that, especially when someone is in a position of having to review their life, that they will come to terms with the things that they did wrong or could have done better, or in situations where they could have been better. And that they will come to some remorse for that or regret for that. I'm not sure that's the case for Jerry. I think there's a part of him that thinks that he did the best that he could, by God. And nobody should be condemned for that. And no one should be condemned for that. And so I think his is a story of how do we treat people who feel that they are just doing the best that they can do with the hand that they've been dealt.
My guest is Tiffany Hanssen, who has written her debut novel about a hitman who gets killed and the cascade of events that happened because of it. The book is called My Name Was Jerry Sass. It's out today. Early Sass is his daughter.
Yep.
Where do we meet her when we first meet her in the book?
We first meet her when she gets up and she's going to check on her chickens in her chicken coop. And she, Jerry is gone for the day, she presumes. She's actually a little bit more. I know a lot of people think that I'm supposed to, right? The natural thing is like, oh, if this is your dad, then this must be you. No, she's really maybe my alter ego, what I would have loved to have been like. She's a little bit of my half sister who's a firecracker. So we meet her when she is still believing that her father is alive. And we see her eventually come to terms with his death in a way that is very Jerry Sass, that is very much in a way that he taught her to be, which is unapologetic.
What would you describe as their relationship?
Jerry he loves her. He dotes on her. She is, and I wonder, let's psychoanalyze me, Allison. I think I would have loved that. Part of those stories I used to tell about my dad was that he was some kind of Daddy Warbucks figure who lived in this big mansion on the cliffs, overlooking the Pacific Ocean in California somewhere. And he was going to just swoop in, and I was going to be I don't know, doing what in this mansion, what I thought I was going to be doing. But he takes care of her in that way, in his way, of course, and in a way that is sort of, he's not Daddy Warbucks, but he has that, she's his little bird. She's his little bird.
Early experiences grief in some ways that people might find odd. What does grief do to her?
It focuses her. She is 100% driven by revenge because of that grief. And I think in a way that Jerry instilled in her that no holds barred, don't take any from anybody way about her. And it activates her in a way that is, like you say, a little bit surprising. But to your point, I think grief is so different for everyone. And there's truth to that, that everybody's journey is different when confronted with grief. And she does confront it eventually. She has her breakdown. She has her moment. Moments. She has her moments. But I think it's a personal journey that maybe not everyone can relate to in terms of, nobody's going to start packing a Colt and hitting the road and taking off after some bad guys when they are overcome with a wash of grief. But you might like to.
Father Dan is a third person we meet. Who is Father Dan?
Father Dan is also a real person, believe it or not. Yeah. He, because I am a lapsed Catholic, I call him not my priest. I call him a friend, which is probably more accurate. I should preface this by saying he's a real person, but he's not at all like the Father Dan in the book, who is very much not priestly, like in his behavior as well. So he came to me because I love my friend Father Dan so much that he really came out of that love, and I wanted to have what is so interesting to me about the real Father Dan is this notion that people don't treat him as a person, they treat him as a priest.
They treat his collar.
Right. They treat his collar. He's a guy, he'll go out and have a beer with me. And he, like everybody, just longs to be seen as a human being. And I think that the Dan in the book is very similar to that. And this is what Jerry gives him. Jerry gives him that feeling of being seen as a human being. And that's why Jerry's death hits him so hard.
So we know what you got Jerry from and where you got Dan from. How did you decide on calling her Early?
I have no idea. I mean, that really was one of those moments where it just kind of came to me.
Yeah.
And I think that this is why I think about this in our position sometimes. When we ask people about process, we ask them about writing a book or writing, what it's like to write a Tony Award-winning musical, right? And I think, I don't know how I would answer that because process is such a weird, amorphous, mystical experience of stuff just comes to you in the shower, in the middle of the night, when I wake up in the morning and I think, oh, this is what I need to do. And so the answer sometimes for those questions is,
Well, it's interesting because you talk about process. This book, it's sort of a caper as well.
Yeah.
Your characters go through it, car chases, and there's bars. And,
Right.
First of all, how did you know enough was enough? Because it could have been all car chases. It could have been all bar fights. When did you know was the time like, I need to pull back here?
This is an interesting thing where you try to balance that propulsive nature, right? This is the propulsion of the book. I say that there's kind of two ways to look at it. Look, if you want a book that's fun to read and like stuff happens and things explode and people get killed, that's this book. And also, right? And also it's that grief you were talking about. And also it's about a man who's going through a crisis of faith. And it's sort of just a reflection of kind of who I am. And I think most people are like that. We're not all one thing. We're not all, me and Allison driving down the road at 100 miles an hour. We'll do it.
Yeah.
But we also do other stuff. So it's just, it feels like a natural balance to me.
You have a full-time job here.
Yeah, I do.
How did you find time to write?
For me, it's entertainment. For me, it's a way to unplug. It's a way to, instead of doom scrolling, instead of watching Veep for the 10,000th time, instead of watching, something I don't even care about on television, I do this. Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone who's listening who thinks they have this novel in them? It's somewhere bubbling inside of them. What would you tell them how to start?
Yeah, do it. I mean, somebody once said to me, the thing you have to do is finish it. Just finish it. I know I can't tell you how many people have come up to me and said, I have this book I started and I have a page done. I have 2 chapters done. I have this done. I have that done. And my response is always, then finish it. Finish it. We can all start something, but so few of us follow through and finish. And if you don't, then it won't ever go anywhere.
What did it feel like when you finished it?
I felt such a huge relief. Like I did a thing. I did a thing. I mean, that's kind of crazy, Allison. I did a thing. I wrote a book. Like, what? And so I felt a tremendous sense of accomplishment until you get into the 75 rounds of edits.
That's another story.
And then it's like, okay, wait, I'm not done, apparently.
The name of the book is My Name Was Jerry Sass. It is by Tiffany Hanssen. Tiffany will be at the Mysterious Bookstore on May 20th at 6 p.m. and I will be joining you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in.
Oh,
well, I guess
so
you were
fun.
here, but
I know, but it was still fun.